Sometimes when we are teaching the curriculum, things can get a little stale, right? I can't tell you how many teachers I have talked to that are just so frustrated that they feel like they've lost the ability to create engaging activities to teach their students their content. Not to mention, I have totally been there. In fact, I live this too every day with the curriculum that I'm asked to teach. But there are simple ways to make things more engaging for your students. And let's face it, also a little bit more enjoyable for you, because that's also very, very important. So today I want to share 4 simple ways that you can go a little off script without derailing your lesson and integrate some creative strategies right into your content. Let's do this. Hey friends, welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again, the podcast for teachers who love the work but need a little spark to bring the joy back. I'm your host, Elizabeth Peterson, classroom teacher, arts integration specialist, and passionate educator of over 25 years. If you're overwhelmed by behaviors, disengaged students, and long, exhausting days, you are not alone. But together, we can turn things around and you can teach with confidence and purpose again. So locate that cold coffee of yours, find your favorite pen, I know you have one, and let's dive in. It's time to get inspired and enjoy teaching again. Have you signed up to be an insider yet? Are you an Inspired Classroom insider? You need to get onto our email list where we are going to send you weekly emails full of bite-sized inspiration, creative SEL tips, and behind-the-scenes peeks at what is going on. And let me tell you, I'm working on a little something behind the scenes right now, which I cannot wait to start sharing with you soon. So make sure you are on the Insider email list. It's free and you can go sign up at theinspiredclassroom.com/insider. You know, I remember countless times when I would look out at my class and see students who were just super disengaged in my classroom. And I realized that I needed to do something. Maybe it was during a math lesson where I was teaching from, the computer and I had the screen up and the kids were kind of like just staring at the whiteboard or the screen. Maybe an ELA class where I was literally reading a script from this big, massive book. And the lesson was just dry and boring. It was boring for me. It was boring for my students. The students, as I would look out at the classroom, and, sometimes this even happens now when I am asked to do a mandated scripted lesson, I'll look out at the class and the students will be blindly staring or just kind of slouching in their seats, just with a glaze over them. And then of course there are the students that just can't do that. They start to get rambunctious. They can't sit still because, let's face it, the lesson is boring. And it's times like these when I'm looking out at my sea of students' faces that I have to have a wake-up call. I have to know when it's time to just pause for a moment and make learning more engaging. Let's face it, so much of our curriculum now is scripted, right? And it just drains the creativity from the classroom and drains the creativity from me, my teaching spirit, you, from your ability to make creative activities and lessons in your school day. You're probably one of the many teachers who feel frustrated and they just want to make learning fun, but they feel stuck between, this idea that we have a curriculum that we are needing to teach. Maybe you even feel like you are like on a schedule where you have to have, you have to be teaching a certain lesson on a certain day, or you have to feel like you're keeping up with the rest of your grade level teammates so that you are not falling behind. You're stuck between that feeling and the feeling that you just know that your students need something more. They need something more engaging to make the learning come alive. Well, that's why I'm going to share with you these easy, teacher-friendly ways to engage students and really get their juices flowing. But here's the important part. These strategies that I'm going to share with you are so simple and so easy that you can kind of take them out at any time and use them for just about any lesson and do it in a short amount of time so that you're not derailing your entire lesson, but just adding a little more edge of engagement to it. So the first one is something with music. You know, music can be so powerful to help set the tone of how you want your classroom to kind of just feel. I always love to think of myself as a DJ in my own classroom. In fact, there was a number of years ago when I was back in high school, I actually did a few DJing gigs, like legit DJing gigs, and it was so much fun because I could actually, kind of create this atmosphere for the people who were at this event or at this party, or have them get up and dance. And you can have that same type of powerful effect inside your own classroom. Now, you'll probably hear me talk about soundtracking at some point, whether you've heard it in past podcast episodes. Certainly you'll hear it in the future. But for this, I want to suggest maybe using some music to actually set the tone for a lesson. You can start class with some music or a song, and maybe it actually relates to the lesson that you're actually doing. Or maybe it just sets that atmosphere that you need in the classroom. So maybe you have your students sit and listen to something that is calming and get them to kind of sit and maybe take a deep breath, maybe do a little stretch in their seats and get them in the right frame of mind. Maybe you need to actually energize your students. Some teachers, who teach a little bit of an older student, sometimes their students will come in and they're just kind of, looking a little lazy and they need a little bit of energy. So music can do that as well. You can even set the tone with just a song that maybe you enjoy. Maybe there's a song, an old song that you grew up with that you just want to kind of share with your students and kind of get things off on the right foot for that particular class. Music can, like I've said, be so powerful, and you can actually use it to make a connection with your students, get everybody in the right frame of mind, and get them ready to learn. You can consider doing some songs that are total classics, maybe something like the Beatles or an 80s song. Those always seem to be just a real good way to get students into the right frame of mind. And then once the song is over, for some students, it will actually kind of stick in their mind, keep that loop or that riff in their head, and can actually be an internal motivator that they can kind of just keep in their mind and keep that rhythm or that riff inside their body to get them to continue participating in the class. The second strategy is to dramatize part of your lesson. This is where you can let students act out a concept. For example, instead of reading about historical events in your social studies book or, whatever history work you might be working on, actually assign roles and let the students reenact key moments. Act like some of the key players in your social studies content. If you're reading a novel, giving students every so often the chance to pause in the story and actually act out how the character is feeling. Have them put on the facial expression. Have them sit in their seat at their desk as if they are the character in that moment. And if you dare, you can even get your students to stand up and full out act like the character. Even providing time for them to act out a tableau, a frozen picture of the character or the historical figure that you're discussing at that time. Dramatizing a lesson doesn't have to be something that is hugely elaborate, where you're breaking kids into groups and having them come up and create skits or do a role play. It can be very, very simple. The other cool part about dramatizing a lesson is that it doesn't have to be that the students are actually acting out a human. In fact, some of my most engaging experiences using this strategy has been in science lessons. Yep, science lessons where students will actually dramatize some kind of process that we're talking about, whether it's the water cycle or if it's how a seed grows into a plant, or if it's, dramatizing the different parts of a flower. Like, there are so many ways that you can have students act out the content of your curriculum. And keep in mind, doing this creative work inside your classroom doesn't have to all come from your ideas. You may even ask a couple of key students in the classroom, how could you dramatize this? And if you have some trusting students that can really give it a shot, it could be pretty amusing and a really nice part of your day. Now let's talk about how to incorporate some visual art. And this is where I want you to think very, very simply. You don't always have to, have students create an illustration or a full-out amazing piece of artwork in order to have them engage in some kind of visual art for your lesson. This can be so simple, like have students illustrating concepts right inside of their notes, right on the edge of their worksheets that you're doing as well. When students can sketch out some of the concepts that they're learning in very small little spots wherever they are working, it can really help to solidify the knowledge that they are learning. Limiting them to just writing things out or copying notes off the board, that doesn't really stick. But when you can give students a quick little 1-minute pause where they can then sketch a little something about what they learned, that's what's going to really help them to internalize the knowledge. One of my favorite things to do, even just when the kids are filling out a worksheet, is if they finish early, I ask them to then, draw a border around their worksheet, but the border has to do with the content that they've learned. So they may, make a border of like certain vocabulary words or maybe some math symbols that are going with what we're working on. Maybe they'll put little stick figures or do little cartoons around the edge, but the borders can become something that really, again, solidifies what they're learning. And it's highly engaging because it's really activating their mind and having them be able to integrate their learning. The fourth and final strategy is so simple, and that is just allowing your students to take a stretch break. And that stretch break can be anywhere from 5 seconds to 1 minute, whatever's going to work for your classroom. For me, when I can see that my students are really struggling and they need a break, but I'm not quite ready to send them to their desk so that they're going to get their work done, or I'm not just quite ready to start passing out the materials, I still have some instruction to give them, some, directions to give them still. So what I'll do is I will say, okay, I can see you guys need a quick break. So I'll ask them to do a 5-second silent starfish stretch. And basically what that is they can get up out of their seats or they can get up off the floor if we're at the meeting area and just really take a moment to put their feet firmly on the ground and stretch their arms out and across their bodies and kind of do a little bit of a twist and just kind of get themselves up, stretched, and sitting back down. And I'll do a slow 5-second count so that they know that they need to then, by the end of that 5 seconds, come back to where they were and be ready to just listen to that last bit of instruction before they can actually get started on whatever the assignment is. So there you go. 4 simple strategies that you can just insert into just about any lesson that you have planned for this week. So we've got the music, setting the tone before your lesson even starts, dramatizing the lesson, picking one small concept of what you're doing in the lesson and allowing students to dramatize it, whether they're just staying seated or even getting up. And then incorporating some kind of visual art, some way for students to illustrate the concepts that they're learning right inside their notes. And then finally, a quick stretch break. And I'll tell you with the stretch break, the more you do this type of thing inside your classroom, the more your students will be trained to be able to utilize it for themselves. This is a great way to incorporate some social emotional learning skills into your day, and you're also making sure that your students are internalizing the content that you're teaching. So pick one idea from today's episode and I want you to try it. Will you start with the music? Maybe you'll have your students act out a piece of your lesson. And let me know how it goes. I would love to hear from you inside of our Inspiring Teachers Facebook community. Go to theinspiredclassroom.com/community and you can join us inside there and share ideas, get some inspiration, and just connect with some other teachers who are like-minded in wanting to help their students have some more engagement and creativity in the classroom. Keep in mind that these are the small changes that are going to lead to big engagement and transforming your classroom. So keep on it, and I can't wait to share more with you in the next episode. All right, this is Elizabeth. Until next time, stay inspired. I hope this episode inspired you, encouraged you, or gave you a fresh idea to try. And if so, I would love for you to take a screenshot and text it to one of your teaching buddies. I'm so grateful that you landed here with me today, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave me a review over on Apple Podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. This is Elizabeth Peterson reminding you to get inspired so you can be inspiring to your students and enjoy teaching again.